afternoon, morning, wherever you are, whenever you see this. Thanks for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. I am doing a little piece here on the Gaza tragedy and ongoing issue. Yes, I do a lot of these, but I found a very important article I want to share. I'm going to give you two articles, and then I'm going to read the third one is the one that really struck me. But I'm just going to give you an overall of what's the news, the latest news that I heard with this, the Gaza issue. It's just a couple of things I'm going to read off of it, not the whole thing, not the whole articles. Israel floods YouTube with ads to whitewash Gaza genocide. Iran offensive. Israel is spending millions of dollars each day on an expansive advertising campaign across YouTube aimed at shifting European public opinion in support of its genocide of Palestinians in Gaza and its recent unprovoked attack on Iran. This is according to Mint Press News. Now, this is in Europe that they're doing this, apparently. The report reveals that the Israeli government advertising agency has paid for ads translated into 5 languages that have reached at least 45 million YouTube users in the past month. The ads are targeting viewers in UK, France, Italy, Germany, and Greece. And they portray Israel as both a victim of terrorism and a global force for good. So you have one ad says, a fanatical Iranian regime firing missiles at civilians while racing towards nuclear weapons. We will finish the mission for our people, for humanity. Israel does what must be done. And another one warns Europeans of a looming threat from Iran's missile program. Iran is developing missiles with ranges of approximately 4,000 kilometers, placing Europe within striking distance. The usual stuff, the scaremongering that they do. So, other ads, they do emotional appeals, such as depicting mothers with newborns under Iranian rocket fire, insisting that while Iran targets civilians, Israel responds with precision and only hits military targets. I tell you, Israel has to be the biggest projectors I've ever seen. The Israeli government just projects 24/7. And this is war propaganda. You know, they used to have propaganda for every war. And if you remember, I saw this during my history class, the propaganda posters, I tell you, they had in World War I, World War II. It was crazy. Over the top. So that's one thing. The other thing is this part that's disgusting. God wants our job to be simply clearing the land, an Israeli bulldozer operator told Haaretz in a recent interview, a remark seen as encapsulating the ideological zeal driving the scale of unprecedented destruction now unfolding in the besieged Gaza Strip. So they think that their God is okay with this, and that God is telling them, yes, clear out all this area of people, go ahead and kill them and murder them and take over their land, and that is, look, that is not a true God. It's not my God. That sounds more like the evil one, like Satan. Or they've conjured up their own God that is what they want to do. So they make it up and say, God said this. No, your will says this and what you want to do. But there are some people there that are warped and sick in the head that they think their God speaks to them like that. That's a pretty monstrous God you have there, Israel. Now I'm going to share the important article. I just wanted to give you a little taste of what's been going on there. Really, if it wasn't so heinous and disturbing and upsetting, it would be just pitiful. Pathetic. So I'm going to share Chris Hedges' his article that he put out June 11th. And since then, it's just been continuing, unfortunately. But he has a way. He's a Pulitzer-Prize winning, award-winning author or journalist. He worked for the New York Times for like so many years, but after the Iraq War came about, they kicked him out because he didn't follow the line that needed to be said, apparently, to the government. You know how they are. You have to be in this. If you don't say this, you can't be our talking heads on mainstream media. I don't agree with him on everything, but, I do agree with him on some things. And, he's also a minister. He also teaches in prisons. He does this kind of work for probably for his ministry. But in any case, I want to read this because it's the most succinct, pinpoint, perfect, spot-on way to explain how I feel about what's going on in Gaza. He says it perfectly. Starving Gaza into submission. So on the final chapter of genocide, and this was in June. This is the end. The final blood-soaked chapter of the genocide. It will be over soon, weeks at most. 2 million people are camped out amongst the rubble or in the open air. Dozens are killed and wounded daily from Israeli shells, missiles, drones, bombs, and bullets. They lack clean water, medicine, and food. They have reached a point of collapse. Sick, injured, terrified, humiliated, abandoned, destitute, starving, hopeless. In the last pages of this horror story, Israel is sadistically baiting starving Palestinians with promise of food, luring them to the narrow and congested 9-mile ribbon of land that borders Egypt. Israel and its cynically named Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, allegedly funded by Israel's Ministry of Defense and the Mossad, although Gray Zone proved this, is weaponizing starvation. It is enticing Palestinians to southern Gaza the way the Nazis enticed starving Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto to board trains to the death camps. The goal is not to feed the Palestinians. No one seriously argues there is enough food or aid hubs. The goal is to cram Palestinians into heavily guarded compounds and deport them. What comes next? I long ago stopped trying to predict the future. Fate has a way of surprising us, but there will be a final humanitarian explosion in Gaza's human slaughterhouse. We see it with the surging crowds of Palestinians fighting to get a food parcel, which has resulted in Israeli and U.S. private contractors shooting dead at least 130 and wounding over 700 others in the first 8 days of aid distribution. We see it with Benjamin Netanyahu's arming ISIS-linked gangs in Gaza that loot food supplies. Probably saying that, and they're blaming Hamas, apparently. Yeah. Israel, which has eliminated hundreds of employees with the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East, doctors, journalists, civil servants, and police in targeted assassinations, has orchestrated the implosion of civil society. I suspect Israel will facilitate a breach in the fence along the Egyptian border. Desperate Palestinians will stampede into the Egyptian Sinai. Maybe it will end some other way, but it will end soon. There is not much more Palestinians can take. We, full participants in this genocide, will have achieved our demented goal of emptying Gaza and expanding Greater Israel. We will bring down the curtain on the live-streamed genocide. We will have mocked the ubiquitous university programs of Holocaust studies, designed, it turns out, not to equip us to end genocides, but deify Israel as an eternal victim licensed to carry out mass slaughter. The mantra of never again is a joke. The understanding that when we have the capacity to halt genocide, and we do not, we are culpable, does not apply to us. Genocide is public policy, endorsed and sustained by our two ruling parties. There is nothing left to say. Maybe that is the point, to render us speechless. Who does not feel paralyzed? And maybe that too is the point, to paralyze us. Who is not traumatized? And maybe that too was planned. Nothing we do, it seems, can halt the killing. We feel defenseless. We feel helpless. Genocide is a spectacle. I have stopped looking at the images The rows of little shrouded bodies, the decapitated men and women, families burned alive in their tents, the children who have lost limbs or are paralyzed, the chalky death masks of those pulled from under the rubble, the wails of grief, the emaciated faces. I can't. This genocide will haunt us. It will echo down history with the force of a tsunami. It will divide us forever. There is no going back. And how will we remember? By not remembering. Once it is over, all those who supported it, all those who ignored it, all those who did nothing will rewrite history, including their personal history. It was hard to find anyone who admitted to being a Nazi in post-war Germany or a member of the Ku Klux Klan once segregation in the southern United States ended. A nation of innocents, victims even. It will be the same. We like to think we would have saved Anne Frank. The truth is different. The truth is, crippled by fear, nearly all of us will only save ourselves, even at the expense of others. But that is a truth that is hard to face. That is the real lesson of the Holocaust. Better it be erased. In his book, One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This, Omar El-Akkad writes, should a drone vaporize some nameless soul on the other side of the planet who among us wants to make a fuss? What if it turns out they were a terrorist? What if the default accusation proves true and we, by implication, be labeled terrorist sympathizers, ostracized, yelled at? It is generally the case that people are most zealously motivated by the worst possible thing that could happen to them. For some of the worst plausible thing might be the ending of their bloodline and a missile strike. Their entire lives turned to rubble, and all of it preemptively justified in the name of fighting terrorists who are terrorists by default, on account of having been killed. For others, the worst plausible thing is being yelled at. You can see the interview there that he did with him. You cannot decimate a people, carry out saturation bombing over 20 months to obliterate their homes, villages, and cities, massacre tens of thousands of innocent people, set up a siege to ensure mass starvation, drive them from land where they have lived for centuries, and not expect blowback. The genocide will end. The response to the reign of state terror will begin. If you think it won't, you know nothing about human nature or history. The killing of 2 Israeli diplomats in Washington and the attack against supporters of Israel at a protest in Boulder, Colorado are only the start. Chaim Engel, who took part in the uprising at the Nazis' Sobibor death camp in Poland, described how, armed with a knife, he attacked a guard in the camp. It's not a decision, he explained years later. You just react. Instinctively you react to that. And I figured, let us do and go and do it. And I went. I went with the man in the office, and we killed this German. With every jab, I said, that is for my father, for my mother, for all these people, all the Jews you killed. Does anyone expect Palestinians to act differently? How are they to react when Europe and the United States, who hold themselves up as the vanguards of civilization, backed a genocide that butchered their parents, their children, their communities, occupied their land, and blasted their cities and homes into rubble? How can they not hate those who did this to them? What message has this genocide imparted now only to Palestinians, but to all in the global South? It is unequivocal. You do not matter. Humanitarian law does not apply to you. We do not care about your suffering, the murder of your children. You are vermin. You are worthless. You deserve to be killed, starved, and dispossessed. You should be erased from the face of the earth. To preserve the values of the civilized world, it is necessary to set fire to a library, he says, El-Akkad writes. To blow up a mosque, to incinerate olive trees, to dress up in the lingerie of women who fled and then take pictures, to level universities, to loot jewelry, art, food, banks, to arrest children for picking vegetables, to shoot children for throwing stones, to parade the captured in their underwear, to break a man's teeth and shove a toilet brush in his mouth, to let combat dogs loose on a man with Down syndrome and then leave him to die. Otherwise, this uncivilized world might win. There are people I have known for years who I will never speak to again. They know what is happening. Who does not know? They will not risk alienating their colleagues, being smeared as an anti-Semite, jeopardizing their status, being reprimanded, or losing their jobs. They do not risk death the way Palestinians do. They risk tarnishing the pathetic monuments of status and wealth. They spent their lives constructing idols. They bow down before these idols. They worship these idols. They are enslaved by them. At the feet of these idols lie tens of thousands of murdered Palestinians. Wow, if that doesn't wrap that whole thing up perfectly, I don't know what does. He nailed that. Now, let me just tell you about him. He's a Pulitzer-Prize winning journalist who was a foreign correspondent for 15 years for the New York Times, where he served as the Middle East bureau chief and Balkan bureau chief for the paper. So he previously worked overseas for the Dallas Morning News, the Christian Science Monitor, and NPR. He is the host of the show Chris Hedges Report. So I've listened to some of his speeches over the past decade, and he saw a lot of things when he was overseas that really stayed with him. You know, some things you don't ever forget. When you see war, you're in a war zone, you don't forget. But anyway, I just had to share that because it was just spot on, exactly how it is. May God forgive us. Thanks so much for watching. Please, if you liked, subscribe to my channel on YouTube if you'd like, and Rumble, and you know. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos, like them. Hit that bell if you'd like to, so that my videos, when they come out, you can be notified about it. So anyway, thanks again for all your support. Until next time.